And this recording will be sent out to all of our participants and registrants after today. Give me about 24 hours to send that over. So I will go ahead and get started with the presentation. I will start sharing my screen once again. This is a quick presentation for Career Connections Center. Just want to let you all know what we offer to our students, the services that we provide. All right, I am, again, like I said, Edwina Hurst. I go by the pronouns she, her. I am the manager for experiential learning and campus inclusion here in the C3. Come see me. I do one-on-one career coaching, but also can connect you with our colleagues and other campus partners to really help you throughout your career planning journey. At the C3, we are celebrating 70 years of career connections, 70 years of partnership, 70 years of serving students and preparing them for the future of work. You can celebrate with us. Go to our website. There is a virtual display of what we've been able to do over the last 70 years, and we look forward to 70 more years. Career development skills and competencies. I wanted to show our students this, as well as our faculty and staff that are on this, that when we speak with employers, and we got this information from the National Association of Colleges and Employers, this is what employers are looking for, the skills and competencies that they need within our students. Career self-development, equity and inclusion, communication, leadership, critical thinking, professionalism, technology, and teamwork. These skills can be learned in the classroom, but most importantly, a lot of them are learned outside of the classroom. And so making sure that you are getting out, making those professional connections through your internships, upskilling, whatever it is outside of the classroom, student and organizational involvement on campus, all of these can be helped and learned through that experience. At the C3, we believe that experience changes everything. These competencies that we spoke about in the previous slide, you can find it through these 8 buckets of experiences that you can get while you're here at UF. 96% of our students have reported in our graduation survey that they participated in at least one of these experiential learning opportunities. And so again, come to the C3. We can help you find these experiences throughout your academic journey. And then just a couple of resources that I wanted to share as well. Our Gator Career Link, there's a QR code there that you can utilize. But through the Gator Career Link, it is your portal to everything career here at UF. You can request 30-minute career planning appointments where you get to talk with a career pathways coach, someone that is in your career pathway that has all the resources and information you need to kind of connect you to different places. But you can request that through Gator Career Link. You can RSVP for our employer-hosted events or workshops. We always have employers recruiting on campus that are also providing workshops for our students. So look and see what events we have upcoming. You can apply for jobs and internships through Gator Career Link. You can also share your resume with recruiters. We also have Express Drop-In. Through Express Drop-In, you don't have to make an appointment, but it's a 15 to 20 minute appointment where you just drop into the Career Center, have us look at some of your professional documents, whether it be your resume, cover letter, personal statements. We can go through your LinkedIn profile for you. You can ask quick career planning questions and just prepare for interviews. We can do some mock interviews through that, but our hours are every day. But Monday, Wednesday, Friday, it's going to be in person 11 to 3. And then Tuesday, Thursday, we offer virtual drop-in appointments. And then this is new, really fun, really exciting, but we launched our Career Hub. It is a platform within our embedded in our website where students can access job market data in real time. You can explore jobs and internships. There are career development tools like Quincia and Gator Network that we've launched. Quincia is an AI-generated system that goes through your resume. You can also do mock interviews on there. So it's a way that we scale our services. And Gator Network is new. It's kind of a Facebook platform, but it is a mentoring connection. So alumni are on there, current Gators are on there, as well as faculty and staff. And we just want to connect students or connect Gators for opportunities, especially that mentorship part of it. And then you can also engage in your particular career pathway, create resumes, and prepare for interviews with the resources that are on Career Hub. Gator Network, I spoke about it. It's kind of like a Facebook platform, but it's connecting Gators for jobs, for mentorship, relationships. And then for some of you who don't know, students, as you are preparing for those interviews or networking events, if you don't have clothing, we can outfit you here at the Career Connection Center. It is free to you. You get 5 pieces of clothing every semester. And so if you have an interview coming up, if you have a networking event coming up, or you want to attend Career Showcase, but you may not have the resources to go out and purchase something, we have really nice business and business casual attire that is free to you. You don't have to turn that stuff back in. And for those faculty and staff that are on here, we also accept donations. So any gently used professional clothing that you want to give away, please consider bringing that to us as well. All right, follow us on our socials, UF Career Center. We have a lot of good information that goes through there, events that happen or shared through there as well. And then this is just, again, if you're late coming into the party today, if you could let us know that you're here by checking in using this QR code. And so that is the end of my presentation, but I want to turn it over to Christine Richmond, who is with Beyond 120. And so we have a good panel set up for you today, and I'll let Christine go over all that information for you.
Great. Thanks so much, Edwina. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our panel presentation on exploring careers in the language services industry. My name is Christine Richmond. I'm Global Engagement Coordinator for the Beyond 120 program in the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences. I'm really excited to see so many students and colleagues here who are interested in this subject, and I'm thankful to our panel for joining us today. Before we get started with introductions, I apologize for my dog. I'd like to invite you in the chat box to go ahead, type languages other than English that you speak, read, or write. So anything maybe also that you're interested in career-wise, and that'll just help our panelists get a sense of who's here. So a little housekeeping, if you have any questions throughout the presentation at any point, feel free to put those in the chat, and we'll have time to go over questions at the end. So now I'd like to introduce our panelists today and tell you a little bit more about their background. So Kathleen Diamond is with us, and she is a consultant, entrepreneur, and business leader in the language services industry. In 1979, she founded Language Learning Enterprises and is recognized as an early pioneer in telephone interpreting, launching LLE Link in the 90s. Over the next 2 decades under her leadership, the company grew to a dynamic multi-billion-dollar corporation serving a wide range of clients in both the public and private sectors worldwide. So Kathleen volunteers her time advocating for the importance and relevance of language services, becoming the founding chair of ALC Bridge. She earned her MA and BA from the University of Florida, go Gators, and is fluent in both Spanish and French. Next, we have Camilo Munoz, who for more than 20 years has had executive level and startup experience in the language localization, investment banking, and real estate industries, and has served as the president of the Association of Language Companies, and is currently a member of the board of trustees at St. John's School in Houston. He's the founder of Translation Source and the co-founder and current chairman of the board of Spanish ASAP. Prior to his entrepreneurship career, Camilo worked as an investment banker. He holds an MBA from the Wharton School and an MA in International Studies from the University of Pennsylvania, and a BS in Industrial Engineering from UF, go Gators. He speaks English, Spanish, and Portuguese. And finally, John Uriave grew up in a first-generation Colombian American household. Growing up straddling 2 cultures left him with a sharp sense of what it means to be both an insider and an outsider, and also left him keenly aware of how sometimes words just don't translate. The experience helped him understand how language and the ability to communicate can open doors and opportunities. He's a lifelong Gator fan, attended UF as a transfer student, and studied English literature. After college, he went on to work at multiple top-tier consulting firms, advising executives and deploying technology solutions. And he, 6 years ago, John acquired International Language Service, a regional language service provider in North Florida that works extensively in the public and private sectors. So thank you all for joining us today. And now I'm going to hand it over to Kathleen, who will get us started.
Thank you so much. Okay, Gators, my gosh, I am so excited to be here this afternoon with you. I'm going to start off by just saying that it was grand to be a student on campus back in the last century. I have a master's degree in 16th century French literature from the University of Florida. And I'll just say right up front, when I came out of college, it wasn't really super marketable, my master's degree, but I have no regrets because my time on campus as a student, I learned I learned so much. I saw so many of the skills that Edwina advertised in her center. Those were the kinds of skills that I came out of school with, and that we today are going to be looking for from you in terms of coming and having jobs in the language service industry. But I learned critical thinking, which, I mean, problem identification. I ended up coming face to face with lots of problems, and problem resolution, which is the most positive way to think about critical thinking as far as I'm concerned. University of Florida gave me so many wonderful things. It allowed me to fill my life with engaging work and inspiring people, stimulating experiences. It certainly widened my exposure to ordinary and extraordinary places, and exciting ideas and ways to realize them. And one of them was coming up with this ALC bridge, which came about back in around 1917, when a group of us language company owners were centered around a little retreat situation in a beautiful place. I think it was Carmel, and discussing what the biggest problem we were facing was. And it didn't take long for us to come up with talent. We were very concerned about pipelines not filled with the kinds of skills of people that we needed to hire for the multitude of jobs that we had available. So a little chat back and forth, and I said, well, it seems like we probably should be talking to the academic world, since we're the employers and they're the educators, and maybe they could help us get individuals ready to come work in the language services industry. Okay, silence in the room. Pretty soon, you know, Kathleen, tag, you're it. We like the idea, let's do it. So ALC Bridge was founded on just that concept of bringing together the employers for language services with the educators training our workforce of the future, all for the benefit of the students. So if you'll allow me a minute, I'd like to share my screen and actually give you some visuals to enjoy here with me. And let's just see, I'm going to put it on slideshow and see if we can just have this visual ready for you. Here we go. Okay, so the introduction is to this reality that we've created. Let me just see, I think I can do it this way. And it's called the ALC Bridge, and it is a platform, literally a platform that brings you students to the language services industry. It is a growing, very significant billion-dollar industry that many still have not heard of. And within it, there are this range of careers that we'll be talking about this afternoon, myself and of course my terrific Gator panelists. So this is what we do. We connect, we come to you in this way to talk to you. We have formulated, you can't have a bridge without having real partners. So over the years, we've developed these great relationships, the best of which, of course, is the University of Florida, because that's where I come from. We have a chance to bring to all of you this graphic. And this is a graphic that was created by Adam Wooten. He is a member of the ALC Bridge Committee. And he said, you know, we need to be able to show students that we're not just talking. We really do have terrific opportunities for you. So if you look at these peaks, you start to see so many possibilities that you kind of, you kind of can't even see it anymore. But it's asking you as a student to think about coming to be with us, with you, if you have backgrounds in communication, business, tech, anything. We're not just looking for language majors per se, although we have plenty of demand for that as well. And that, of course, would be in terms of needing to hire linguists who can perform interpreting, which is the verbal, and translating, which is the written, and other skills, localization and such, that require the linguistic expertise. All of the other positions that we're showing you here, it would be nice to have a passion for language. We are asking you to think about having, at least a little interest in language one way or the other, but it certainly is not a requirement for many of the jobs that we have available. So when you look at these careers, it's sort of interesting because you've got them, they kind of come together in this graphic. There's a relative proximity, which gives you the opportunity to move in many directions from one role to the other, related. So many related job titles are grouped. You've got managers, you've got directors, you've got supporters, but without straight lines connecting one to the next. Such proximity is not always possible, especially for titles that can relate to so many others. And then you've got your verticals, and there it's all about the seniority. And again, it's not necessarily in a straight line. That's why we like the peaks. Think of yourself as a climber when you come develop with us, with all kinds of possible changes and exciting things happening. So I like to keep this part of the presentation short, because what we really want to do is to bring you into the excitement that we feel with what we're doing. So this is the ALC Bridge job board, which is where you as the students can go to actually see the jobs posted and apply. We also have internships. And as I mentioned to my colleagues as we were getting ready to come in and be with you this afternoon, if you were to go, as we're speaking, go to the ALC Bridge career website right now, you'll see a lot of, even if you just go to the ALC Bridge homepage, you'll see a lot of interesting positions posted right now. So it's not complicated. You come in, there's no registration required. You upload your resumes, you work directly with the employers. And as I said, internships are also very much a part of the work that we do. So I want you just to get started and visit the ALC Bridge, spend some time with us. You'll see lots of other resources. And then when you're ready to come in and either look for a job or an internship, come on in and post to the career site. And again, lots of different things that you can experience by coming to the ALC Bridge. I will ask you to hold back your questions if you don't mind, because we will we'll take plenty of questions as we go through and we get closer to the next phase of our discussion. I really enjoy this job of mine. So you see, I get to pick who the panelists are going to be. And I do actually quite a bit of planning and thinking, because I really like to come on campus with the best possible panelists. So this afternoon, we have 2 Gators, and we had a little rehearsal. Doesn't mean that we're going to be, super, but we are, as you've seen, we're fully dressed and ready to go. And we're going to start this afternoon with bringing Camilo to you. And Camilo is an old friend. I actually served under him when he was once the president of the Association of Language Companies. And little did he know that I'd be now having him work for me, which he does actually quite well. So Camilo has got interesting things to talk to you about in terms of his story, but also his company and the kinds of talent that he's looking for. So Camilo, would you take the mic, please?
Absolutely. Thank you, Kathleen, and thank you to Edwina and Christine for organizing today's event. The first thing that I want to tell you is, and this is going to date me a little bit, is I was a student at the University of Florida. I was actually a sophomore when Steve Spurrier became the head coach. And I was a junior when we first got our first SEC football title. I still remember that game. We stayed there for like an hour. Everybody was so excited. And I bring this, number one, because I love the University of Florida, but number two, also because things changed quite a bit, right? When I was a student, getting to your first SEC championship was a huge thing for us. And now, obviously, we're a recognized powerhouse, even though we are not doing fantastic this year in college football. So the ALC Bridge is a fantastic initiative to connect talent with jobs, and more important than jobs, with potential careers. The way we see it a lot of times is relatively easier to find a job, but to find a career is more difficult. And one of the things that you can take advantage of by with the ALC Bridge is to be able to try and test this industry and find out what this is about. It is obviously the panelists today we have made a career out of this industry, and we have done fantastically in very different levels. It's a wonderful industry in terms of people, but I wanted to touch specifically on two things. Number one, the skill set that or general characteristics that I think tend to align the best with people who are successful in this industry. So number one, I think if you have a background in humanities and in languages, obviously that helps and is very, very important. And I guess that a good percentage of you meet that criteria. The second thing I think is very important, if you want to make this out of a career out of this, to be comfortable with change. This is an industry that is changing very rapidly because of technology, because of geopolitics, because of globalization, and it will continue to change. So it's a career that is very good for people who feel comfortable with change. Third thing, I believe it's a career that it benefits more people who want to make a social impact. You see, there are careers that are socially positive, socially neutral, and some of them socially negative, right? This is a career that overall is socially positive. And you can see that when, for example, you are in a hospital and our interpreters are helping people who do not speak English and have to make decisions that may affect them for the rest of their lives. So it is a career that, if you have that vein towards social impact, I think is very good. So that's about characteristics. The other thing that I wanted to touch, and this is quite general, is I was thinking about how the development of your careers, and I assume most of you are students at the university right now, are going to be very different to the ones that John, Kathleen, and I had. It's a different time and so on. The technology is changing the landscape. One piece of advice is a lot of the careers that you can find and you can follow have at least one of these three components. And these are the jobs that in my mind have future. Are number one, jobs and careers where you have to deal with leadership, because leadership is something that is not going to be easily changed by technology. Number two, something that has to do with relationships. So, things like sales jobs or these kind of jobs are not going to change. And in that front, a career in languages touches that column. Languages is something that is not going to go away because communication is so key and is obviously the basis in communication and in relationships. So that's a wonderful thing, and that's why even though we see continuous changes in technology, we continue to see our field, our industry growing tremendously. And the final thing is careers where you have to be creative. I think that's something that is also going to be very helpful. And we all know, I know John, Kathleen, and I know that this is a career that is, this is an industry that is relatively in its infancy. I don't want to say infancy, but if it was a career, if industries were like people, we would probably be an early teenager, if you will. And that's fantastic, because your creativity, people that come with ideas, with ways of making communications better, cultural sensitivities, and ways to improve that are going to be very helpful to our career. So if it sounds like this is something of interest, and if you see in one of those areas, you see yourself, I think that you should give a try to this. I'm not going to go into detail into the kind of opportunities that we have. We can leave that for the Q&A session. And I know that John has a wonderful presentation, so I want to yield the floor to him.
Thank you, Camilo.
Thank you, Camilo. Thank you so very much.
Always excellent.
So it was what? It was leadership, creativity, and social
and relationships.
Okay, very
Those
good.
three things are not going to go with AI in the next 10 to 20 years.
That's exactly right. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate the clarity of your presentation and thoughts. So John,
Yeah.
he's also a colleague of mine. We are, when Camilo mentions relationships within the industry and within the Association of Language Companies, we have terrific relationships. We are competitors with each other in many ways, but we also are collaborators, and we work together for the greater good. In this case, for you students, future talent in our workplace. And so John and I are fairly new together, but once again, once the relationship is established, he's become tried and true, and it's really quite special to have him on the panel. And I found out that he was a Gator at one of our breakfast meetings. He said, "Oh, the poor thing, he's done." So John, welcome.
Thank you, Kathleen. No, and thank all of you. I think it was a couple of months ago that Kathleen reached out and said, "Hey, do you want to be a part of this?" It's with the University of Florida. First off, obviously, anything Kathleen does, I would love to be a part of. So I was absolutely thrilled. Secondly, it's the University of Florida. So that's the university that first off let me in, and and where I received my education. So I think of it in a lot of ways like going back. Who wouldn't want to have the opportunity to go back a few years and tell yourself what you've learned, how you could improve? And I was really, really appreciating what Camilo was saying in terms of the language industry. Right now, So I have international languages service, and a year and a half ago, I purchased another company. Kathleen's familiar with it, cross-cultural communications. And we do a lot of trainings through cross-cultural communications. And we have one training in particular, which is kind of the core of what we do. And I remember talking at that training the first day we were kicking it off and just making the point about the interpreting profession. 40%, I'm sorry, 40 million Americans, roughly 10% of the US population is what they call an English language learner or a limited English proficient person. It's someone whose primary language is other than English. And I was talking about the role interpreters have and how ultimately it is a social justice profession. It's about equity. It's about equal educational outcomes, health outcomes. It's about the common good. It's really, frankly, about democracy. It's something that is good for society as a whole when we can integrate. So we have English language learners are 10% of the population. We have the deaf community is another 1%. So that's 11% of the US population that truly relies on just one segment of what we're talking about today. Camilo actually represents a little bit more of the translation side. I represent a little bit more the interpreting side. And so it has a huge impact. And it's part of our trainings. If you guys are open to it, I'm not going to force you. We always require everyone to have their camera on. We want to see some faces. We want to see some smiling faces. I'm not going to force you, but you're more than welcome to put on your camera, especially we're going to have a little bit of a Q&A. I do want to talk briefly. Thank you. Thank you to those of you that are turning it on, if anyone. Jason, appreciate it. So I'm going to share my screen real quick. Just going to quickly talk about, 1 second. Quickly talk about my background. Can everybody see that? Can everyone hear me okay? Okay, wonderful. Put it in presentation mode. Okay, so yeah, whoops. There we go, running through the presentation. So in terms of my background, I wanted to talk quickly about my background. And then I want to talk about this industry, the language industry, the language service industry. I wanted to veer off script just a little bit, and there's a reason for it, pretty much because everyone here, the degree of change we're all encountering, we're all going to encounter in our professional careers is pretty unprecedented. And so what does that mean? That means we're all ultimately, in a sense, entrepreneurs. So I wanted to talk briefly about entrepreneurship. I'm going to throw out some numbers. Some might be a little bit eye-popping, some not so. Some might be a little bit alarming. And yeah, just open it up to Q&A. That's me. Let's see, my background. First thing I wanted to mention is I'm on LinkedIn. I am a part of your network. I want to help. We all want to help. Every school you attended, all the alumni, they want to help you. They want you to be successful. Don't be shy about reaching out on LinkedIn. Don't be shy about reaching out to folks, to set up a call, to run through something. I certainly had a world of questions when I was in college. The thing about being young is that you don't even know the questions you should ask. So that's why having conversations is really important, relying on your network, just asking people. My background, I was a really mediocre high school student, and then I luckily found my way into community college, and then I luckily found my way into the University of Florida by the grace of God, and I fell in love with reading and writing. I thought I wanted to be a lawyer, and then I realized I did not want to become a lawyer. I would have been a pretty unhappy lawyer. But I found myself after college in DC, a series of sales jobs, a series of consulting jobs. Spent about 10 years between Washington, DC and Dallas in consulting roles, sales roles. Went to Duke for business school. After business school, again, found myself in sales roles and consulting roles, found myself working for other folks. And then remarkably, had the opportunity, there's a story there, but had the opportunity to buy a family business. And so I did it. I bought a family business. I was able to move back home. I'd always been interested. I knew nothing actually, but I'd always been interested in the language industry. And from the first day, you're managing a P&L, and just realizing there's so many skills that I learned reading, that I learned in business school that help you as an entrepreneur. And then last year, I purchased this other company, Cross Cultural Communications, two different, very, very different companies in the sense that one is an education company within the language industry. The other one is a pure interpreting company within the language industry. So that brings me to the language industry. And what is the language industry? It's really big. Let me move this. It's really, really big. It's probably bigger than the music industry. And it's probably about a fraction of the size it should actually be. So you get different statistics. It probably globally somewhere between 60 billion and 70 billion, with about 30% of that globally, with about 30% of that actually coming directly from the United States. The United States, through Title VI of the Civil Rights Act, where the Supreme Court ruled that language access is enshrined in the Constitution as one of your rights, made it pretty clear. It's guidance. It's not a law, but it is guidance that, hey, you have rights to language access. If you're going to get surgery done on your left leg, you should know what the surgeon is saying before you sign the consent form. If you get pulled over by a police officer, you should know what he's saying. You have to go to court, you should know what they're saying. If your child is in school, you should know what they're saying. Language access is everywhere. Camilo again represents the translation side. I represent the interpreting side. So I am working the way Kathleen worked to confirm. I had an interview earlier with someone who speaks, of course, Burmese. That's an easy one, but Hakachin and then Fala. So those are tribal languages from Southeast Asia. Those are languages that, not Burmese. Burmese is a national language. Burmese is a language people go to school in. The other languages are going to be more tribal. They're going to be languages that are more informal. They frequently don't have a written script. So scheduling people for interviews, for assignments for those languages, it's always a huge challenge. Just wanted to give you a little bit of background in terms of what I do in the interpreting side, but I was actually mentioning to I was having this conversation the other day, and through an association, might be ALC, I was making the comment that there was a ton of business owners in the room, small business owners, and I don't know how many members are part of ALC. I imagine it's a few hundred easily. And I think, I'm strictly guessing, strictly sort of extrapolating, I think that most companies are roughly, how am I doing on time? Are roughly $3 million companies in revenue. They're small companies, $3 million in revenue. If a company's $3 million in revenue and margins are 20%, what that means is the business owner is taking home $600,000 a year. That's after paying their salary. And what that means is that they're in the 1% of income earners. That's the very, very top. And that's $3 million company. I think a lot of the companies at ALC are much, much larger. And then these are just dynamics that play out in every industry. The folks that come into the industry don't come in making that much money. I know freelance interpreters don't make enough money to pay their bills through freelance interpreting their first few years. I know it's very tough. And those are dynamics maybe the industry as well has to wrestle with and figure out for the good of the industry. But I also know interpreters that 10 years ago were doing freelance interpreting. And today they started their own company and they have good sized companies. So sure, we're in the language industry, but we're also entrepreneurs in the language industry. But I think no matter which industry you choose, you have to think of yourself as an entrepreneur. Ultimately, what is an entrepreneur? She's someone who constantly asks why. The critical thinking Kathleen was talking about earlier. Why is this like this? Why can't I do this? Is there a better way? Why? That's where the critical thinking comes in. So then, I don't know if this is a necessary slide, but this is just in majors of unicorn founders. I just found it interesting that the majority these are people that intentionally went to school to become entrepreneurs, the business people, the engineering people, but ultimately we're all entrepreneurs. Some next steps. If I was going to talk to myself, did I lose it? If I was going to talk to myself, I'd be like, major in math. Why? Because it sharpens your thinking, probably more than anything else. Not because of anything tangible you're going to be able to do with math. Sure, you can build a financial model. You can do some really cool stuff with Excel. But I think math and reading. If you're going to do anything, though, if there's one thing I would tell myself, is that you shouldn't think of any major as an end in itself. But ultimately, you should think of education as the end itself. If you come out, think of education as a way to get more money, then we've kind of put the cart before the horse. So I would read. I read a lot. I love to read. I think it keeps me sharp. I would join professional association. I would volunteer. I would network. And I think everyone is ultimately an entrepreneur. What I mean by that, also a salesperson. That's it. I'll stop ranting. For 13 minutes. Okay.
Well, John, if I may, that was just great. Just great. And it just makes me have to tell my own little personal anecdote about my father. So when I announced that I was going to be majoring in French, he said, "Oh, Kathleen, such a smart girl like yourself, you should be majoring in math." So I did major in French, and I got my master's degree in French. And when I made that big jump from, well, no one's going to hire me, so I'm going to hire myself and create a company, and I did. When the company, which was Language Learning Enterprises, came home with its first year of $1 million revenue, my dad was first in line to say, "You know what? Good decision majoring in French." So you never know. Christine, I think we have plenty of time to open up the floor, unless, Camilo, did you want to make any other remarks?
No, I think John did a wonderful job. The entrepreneurial part of the equation in this industry is huge, especially for those who, and I assume is a good percentage of you, who want to make money. And there is a big opportunity here because the ecosystem for to start a company in the language industry is relatively low barriers to entry. It's relatively easy to start a language company versus, starting an engineering firm, a business that manufactures XYZ. So in that sense, it's a common progression for people who are interested in that. Having said that, I know plenty of people who never wanted to start a company because it's another subset of challenges, and are doing very well. But the entrepreneurial part is very important in this industry. Yeah.
Well, thank you. And of course, that gives us a very good reason to suggest that you consider having an internship with us. We're working hard with our members, our company members, to even the small ones, to work with us and offer internships, because we think it's a good way for students to come in and get to know us. All right, Christine, let's see if we can have some questions here. We've got about 15 or so minutes left, and we'd love to hear from you specifically. Ask us your specific questions.
Yes, feel free to put them in the chat, or if you prefer to raise your hand and unmute, that works too. But yeah, ask away. These are wonderful resources, and anything you want to know.
You know, we have a
yeah.
question here from
Go ahead, Don.
Simona.
Yeah.
Simona in the chat, thank you for the question. I think it's actually a very good question. What are some good internship entry-level positions for someone with a lower language proficiency looking to increase their skills in the language and corporate field? And it's a bit tricky because you want to get your proficiency. And the first thing I would ask is, how do you know where your proficiency is at? That is something as well where the industry itself isn't even that mature, because there are a ton of tests out there. There's a ton of companies out there. What you want to look at is the ACTFL standards, and an organization that can test according to the ACTFL standards, ACTEFL, are the standards developed by the federal government to test folks in foreign service, just to determine, hey, what can they actually do to increase proficiency. I think it's immersion. To really get yourself. That would be my honest take. It's about immersion first, and then continuing to read and expand your skills. And then from there, the opportunities will find themselves. I don't know, Camila, what your thoughts are if someone has.
Yeah, that's a very good question. Like, I mean, if you think about the language industry and compare it to any other business, let's say manufacturer of airplanes, Boeing or something like that, right? I mean, if you do not speak another language, it's kind of the equivalent that you cannot be a mechanic or an engineer who makes the plane. But having said that, there are plenty of positions that are tangentially part of the industry. So positions that come to my mind, obviously there's a lot of business development positions, business development / sales positions that are very interesting, and you would be speaking with a lot of people that are interested in languages, and that obviously helps to your development of a second or third language. There are positions in operations like project management that are fairly important, which you do not need to speak a second language to interact with a hospital client with your resources, for example. So there are plenty of positions like that. And my guess is that the ALC bridge has a good number of positions like that. Now, if you have 2 or 3 languages, and then another set of opportunities open up, right? I mean, traditionally, the 2 most common ones are being a translator, meaning the written word, right, or being an interpreter, right, which is the oral interpretation. So it is a little bit different. People in our industry tend to say that extroverts tend to go to become interpreters, and more introverts go into translation, but that's, you know, an oversimplification. But there are obviously, within those 2, there are a lot of different subsets and opportunities within.
Doesn't anybody have any questions about what we're doing about AI?
Oh, I have some questions.
We do have one other question in the chat, if we don't mind taking a look at that one real quick.
So let's see, from Jennifer Jameson. Thank
Yeah.
you, Jennifer. So from your experience, do you believe people with a master's in language are at an advantage to someone with just an undergraduate degree?
I don't think so. I mean, it's not a gotta, it's not a have to.
It's not a. but there's definitely benefits. Someone who has a graduate degree is always going to have a little bit more experience under their belt. They've done more work. They've refined their skills. So it's a benefit, but it's not a necessary.
Yeah.
I think to follow
mean,
up on what Kathleen is saying.
What I can say specifically that I certainly took to the corporate world from my master's degree was the ability to write, as you said. I discovered that the largest client that I could seek creating a business in language in Washington, D.C. was the federal government. And so they were clear to me. They said, well, you know, we have a lot of agencies that buy language services, but you're going to have to take a look and see if they've got any RFPs out. And I'm thinking, RFPs, qu'est-ce que c'est?
This is true.
You know, and so once I figured out that was, you know, a request for proposal, oh, I've got to write a proposal. I can write a proposal.
Yeah, hammering out a 25-page proposal across 4
No
days.
problem.
You know, it's ultimately if you can do that, you can do it well.
And
you can create the
and
charts.
And just to compliment Jennifer, that's a very good question. I would suggest that you put yourself in the shoes of the recruiter, right? I think it will depend on case by case. If for example, we're hiring a person where a second language is required, let's say it's French, right? And we have a person with an undergrad, but who lived in France for 2 years versus a person who has a grad degree. Sometimes the extra years in France will be more important to us, but it depends, right? For what, it depends on things like what Kathleen said. So either one is good. I don't think that it depends on very specific what kind of job opportunities you are looking at.
And I think Maria's question is actually is a really good one as well. What kind of jobs are open for an all but dissertation PhD graduate student ready to live academia? So I know academia isn't some people get really tired of academia. First thing I would do is not mention your ABD. You're a PhD graduate. Someone with a PhD is very attractive to a number of probably federal government agencies, and organizations that do a lot of translation, even maybe a little bit more on the literary translation. But then that's just your foot in the door. Then the sky's the limit once you get a little bit of experience.
I'm thinking also that any sort of managerial jobs in our industry. I mean, if you look at the peaks, I mean, we need managers for everything, you know, for talent recruitment, for marketing, for account managers, for everything, not just the project managers. So we need global talent, people who can think, people who are educated, see the world broadly.
Yeah. I think also that probably you'd be better off in companies that tend to be larger, and that is because John mentioned that if you look at what the structure of the industry is, there are probably 1,000 companies in the U.S. with more than 5 employees that are in the language industry. But a lot of them, I would say 900, are probably between 5 employees and 30 employees. A PhD in my mind is a person that has proven it's his or her intellectual value and has a lot of commitment and has deep thinking. So a lot of times a person with that kind of skill can be better off in bigger companies, companies that want to do something different, that want to manage a new department, that want to think how to adapt to technology or to globalization, or to create a new program for new linguists coming in, and so on. But in order to have all of this, you have to have certain critical mass.
We have a question from Karina Garcia. Leo, as an undergraduate student interested in foreign service who knows multiple languages, would internship experiences in the language industry be beneficial? I mean, I'm going to say yes. One of our larger companies is Language Line Solutions. They're a very large company. And I think they have several positions posted on the website as we speak. You might want to poke around and see if you can kind of get in touch with them and see what the next steps might be.
Yeah. No, and I would absolutely agree with Kathleen. I would also potentially explore language service companies that are doing federal government contracting work. That just gets you in that world. Organizations that are working in the DC area. There's a handful of really big ones, and that could potentially get you to State Department interpreting. I know at ATA last week, or was it 2 weeks ago, the State Department is hiring interpreters. So maybe I need to connect you guys, Kathleen. I went by the booth. They're hiring a ton of interpreters, and so that's a way in. Absolutely. And some of these conference interpreters are doing some really, really, really cool things. They're doing presidential summits. They know Prince Harry personally. Like they're good friends with Prince Harry. But obviously that's as much as they could say. Everything else is confidential because you're an interpreter. But okay. How do you think? Go ahead.
All right, Christine, did I send you the page of internet resources for the students?
Yes. Yep, we'll send those out along with the recording. So
would you please, because that 2-pager, I think it is, gives you the links to all of these organizations that we've been talking about, and they're all important for you to already begin to get to know. And you know, ATA is a good one if you're interested in translation, and the membership is reasonable, especially if you're still a student.
Well, I think we have another question from Hardy. Is there a recommended pipeline for someone interested in a specialized translation field like medical translation? Working on a translation certificate, my undergrad major itself is not health related. We can get into a lot more of detail here, and this is probably, you have to hear like the whole thing. When I think about medical interpretation, if you want a job in medical interpretation, it's going to depend a lot of what language, what 2 languages are you talking about? If you're going to do, for example, a Spanish English, that's a language that typically has a lot of supply of individuals. Right? You have a lot of immigrants who speak Spanish, learn to speak English, take a certificate, and have probably done an undergrad, or maybe even don't have an undergrad, but became proficient and are very good at it. So you're going to, I think the answer to your question is no. I don't think it's a problem if you do not have a health-related exposure to that. I think the challenge is going to be more supply and demand, and depends on the language that you have.
Thank you, Camilo. Any other questions? We're at the top of the hour.
So let's see, Luca has a question. As an undergraduate, first year, hoping to work outside the US, such as with US partner JET program, what would be a good minor or certificate to see more appealing to employers? So the JET program is excellent. And it's not terribly, I don't know how competitive it is, but I don't think it's super competitive. But I don't know the answer here, but how would you guys think about the answer? I guess the JET program customers in Japan, what are they looking for from the US candidates? So potentially, if there's a liaison, you're really early in your the fact that you're thinking about this already will probably put you in an advantage. I thought about applying to the JET program a long time ago. And I wasn't able to tailor my application, but there has to be a liaison. You can call the embassy in DC, in the Japanese embassy, and probably talk to them. I mean, hey, I just want to learn a little bit more about this. And you probably get your best answer that way.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. My generic answer, and I give that to my kids, is if you're unsure and you are inclined to sciences, you cannot go wrong with STEM, with some
That's
kind of minor in technology, math, sciences. But I think that's very generic for what the question is. But
Yeah,
I don't know.
I think you got to go to the source. But
Yeah.
That's a good point.
I would have nothing to add either.
Linguistics.
But-
Yeah. No, linguistics, of course, will be helpful. But I think the purpose, you got to look at what the purpose behind if you're referring to Luca's question, the purpose behind the JET program would be to see what makes for the strongest candidates.
Mhm.
We have some good answers, linguistics, other languages. Yep, thank you. Okay. This has been wonderful. It's so great to see you guys and be with you and
Thank you all.
have a
Thank you
terrific.
so much. Thank you so
Yeah.
much, Kathleen, John, Camila. We really appreciate your time. And again, we will send out the recording along with a nice list of resources for you all. So thanks so much.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Go Gators.
Thank you, Kathleen.